it safe so they can be played on another day. Rob's Arcade.
Oh, walk into a plant. Welcome back, everybody, to Rob's Arcade. This is your host, Mr. Rob French, and you might be wondering why I'm sitting here in a flight suit. Well, today's show, I'm glad you're here to tune in. I'm just going to go ahead and put this out there that, all Star Wars, everything from the very first um, movie, the original movie in the 70s, all the way to the new Mandalorian from episode 1 all the way to Skeleton Crew. It is all garbage, but I love it. I can't get enough of it, and I have to eat it up. Num num num. But I'm here today to talk to you guys about Star Wars and just some of the funny things that I find, from different people that I hear when discussions come up about the franchise and just people's take on it and the need to evaluate it and rank it and all of that. So I definitely want to thank you guys for taking the time to kind of hang out here with me while I go through some of this. We're just wrapping up with May the 4th and Revenge of the 5th and the 6th and all of that kind of stuff. And, I've been able to kind of go through and revisit this awesome franchise. And hopefully you guys have gotten a chance to, check some of that out as well. As we're like halfway through the week, I wanted to kind of hang out with you guys and touch base. And just kind of talk about it a little bit as, now that we've kind of wrapped up another Star Wars day. But again, I want to thank you guys for, hanging out, taking the time to spend a little time and go over some of this stuff with me. I hope you guys are doing good. Hope you guys, like I said, got a chance to even check some Star Wars out. It's a lot of stuff. I remember even back before there was really even a Star Wars day, I myself would kind of dress up. As you can see, I'm like dressed up in my flight suit now just to kind of add a little bit more of a layer to this whole discussion here. But, I would dress up, wear shirts and all kinds of stuff and really get into it years ago, like years and years ago. And then it really started to become this thing, like you have a Star Wars day. I would do marathons sometimes on like the release of different films and kind of celebrating different anniversaries. But then, like you had the May the 4th all of a sudden take off, and then it was like Revenge of the 5th or 6th, and like however you want to, it became this like whole huge, now it's like a month. Like, I don't know if I can even state that we're necessarily completely wrapped up with another Star Wars marathon. There's still tons of things to be watching and to run through. So, who knows? We still have, I think, some space. Excuse me, to take a little sip of coffee there to turn this into like a whole month long celebration. I know a lot of people do that anyway. Like, it's just so many different shows and movies and things out there nowadays. I kind of mentioned in some of the other videos back when the prequels were coming out. We were so excited to get more Star Wars, and there was nothing really in between the films. Like, I feel like now, even in between some of the major movies that we've had and some of the recent shows and things, there's just always something being added, whether it's a new season of like animated shows or a new season of something that exists or just a new show in general, a one shot. Like, there's all these things that are happening with Star Wars, and we just keep getting more and more, and there's always fillers and things to kind of, even video games are still coming out to kind of help like propel the stories. But as I mentioned before, like when prequels were coming out, there was really like nothing other than video games to kind of help push those stories. And now we have so many things, and people just, I feel like, have this inclination, and I say people, but it's really just Star Wars fans. When you get down to the brass tacks of it, it's not like there's groups of people out there in the public ragging on Star Wars. I feel like it's something either you're into or you're not really. But there's just people that like, as fans, really have to feel like this inclination to rank it, to judge it, to say what's good, what's bad, what is Star Wars, what isn't Star Wars, what feels like Star Wars, what doesn't feel like Star Wars, and it just drives me crazy. I have this belief, and this is my belief, okay? And like, I'm sorry, this is just how I feel. Whether it's your favorite music artist, or your favorite film franchise, or your favorite film character, or your favorite actor, whatever it is, like I feel like you just have to appreciate their work or that thing or what. Like, I'm a fan of Spider-Man. Okay, are there things about the movies that like drive me a little bit crazy and bother me from time to time? Absolutely, of course there are. Are there things I wish that didn't? Of course. Are there things that I love? Of course. And so, like, I feel as a fan of Spider-Man, it's my duty to appreciate all the cartoons and all the animated shows and all the comics and all the things that. Same with Star Wars. It's about. There are people that are like, oh, I don't like is Boba Fett as good as the? Maybe not. I don't know. But is it Star Wars? Yeah. Does it have all the lights and the sounds and all the things that I want to hear? Of course it does. Is the Phantom Menace a great example of Star Wars? Probably not. The holiday special, the 70s holiday special, definitely not the best example of what Star Wars is. That thing's like brutal to watch, but I still love it. It's like an hour and a half or something, and it takes me like 3 days to get through it, just like a little piece at a time here, a little piece of a time. Just you can't. It's a rough one, but I love it, and I have friends and people who won't watch it because they're just like, oh, it's stupid, it's not good. Maybe not, but it's Star Wars. It's a piece of that. Sorry, I've been eating a little breakfast too. I'm drinking coffee and having breakfast with you guys. But it's a piece of that franchise. It's a piece of that whole thing. So, is it the best example? Probably not. But do I love it? Of course I do. Do I watch it? Of course I do. Do I think the original franchise is better than the prequels? I mean, yeah, to a degree, but if you also go back and look at some of the original trilogy, there's some kind of like weird hokey stuff in that too. I like I said, went back and one of the things that prompted this whole discussion was I had a teen event a few weeks ago, and during this teen event, there was a lot of discussion about, is Disney killing Star Wars? Is Disney killing this? Is Disney, the Marvel franchise and all these things? And the whole takeaway was these kids, bless their heart, honestly believe that Disney and Disney Plus is killing the Star Wars franchise. And I let them talk for a few minutes and just kind of let them get their ideas out. And it was a lot of repeating that same statement and, just letting them kind of get all that out for a moment before I kind of finally couldn't bite my tongue anymore and kind of jumped in and said, well, I don't know if I completely agree with that. I would say that there are probably pieces that are, better as far as the storytelling goes, and there are things that are probably have a bigger production. But I was like, I don't know if I would say it's killing anything when, we still have shows constantly coming out. The Alkalite wasn't probably received very well. I think that was one of the shows that they were kind of ragging on, which forced me to go back and actually watch it. And again, like there's nothing I can really pick out. It's Star Wars. Is it the best example? Would I start with that and say like this is where you should start? And I don't think so. But I think it's a fun story. It's a fun idea, and you've got the cool lightsaber effect. Some of the best like sword fighting pieces that we've had come out of the whole franchise. And I think any chance we get to see like, aspects and broadening things, even if it is like episode 1 where we're just kind of like broadening what that looks like, I think it's great to get a chance to see that. But other shows have other production value and just different takes, different storylines. I wasn't a huge fan of the witch piece, but I know that plays very big into like the Clone Wars series and how all that is like supposed to come into play and how that like works and whatnot. So like I don't know. I was listening to this and I'm sitting there thinking like, well, we've gotten this. We just wrapped Skeleton Crew. a new season of Andor. There's new animated shows coming out, and I'm like, I don't know if I necessarily like agree with that. And then after talking with these kids for a few moments, and I'm asking, like, well, have you seen this and have you seen that? It became evident that they hadn't seen any of it, and they were just basically, riffing on, YouTubers that they had seen who were doing reviews of these shows, and like, um, Luke Scars to Killer 2986 says that this episode is an overrated, blah blah blah, and then I'm like, really? Like, well, also that YouTuber Lightsaber Johnny Nine says that the show really just overemphasizes the. I'm like, you guys, but have you seen it? Have you ever have you formed your own opinion on this show and on this franchise? And it kills me to think that, like, if we live in an apocalyptic world later where there's nothing but data files of YouTubers explaining what Star Wars really is, we're going to live in a utopia of destruction and steam and sludge where there is no Star Wars. And only the people that have these, like, negative vibes and live in this their utopian world of like, oh, this sucks and that sucks, and then one day somebody will step out of the hills with a Blu-ray copy of the original trilogy and play it, and like, Star Wars was amazing. Well, we must restructure our whole lives around these Star Wars and their stories. The new God's decree, to change the whole world and everything. They've never seen it. So it was killing me to think that, like, there's people out there not only like judging the show and like putting it in a rank, but people have never even seen the show and are not giving it a fair chance. But like I said, I went back, I watched Acolyte, and I was like, again, I liked it. I think it was really cool. I wish they would do more of a story, butting that against some of the maybe leading up to some of the events of Episode 1. I think that would be really, really fun. But also then going back and watching like the original movie, and I mean like the original, like no added, like this special edition, no added thing. It's a very cheesy, very like just silly space movie, and it's interesting to me to even think that there are people out there like actors and things who will work on a production, like pick any movie that's like really huge now, even like a Star Wars movie that's really big nowadays, and I think. People will tell you like, well, Ryan Reynolds, did you think that this Deadpool thing was going to be a big, like, of course he's going to, yeah, I did. I knew it would, like, hey, Robert Downey, when you were doing Iron Man, did you think it was going to take off? Oh, yeah, of course I did. Like people, I think as they step into these things, like they know these movies are going to be epic and it's going to be a big takeoff and like, oh, did you know? Oh, of course we did. Like we anticipated. Looking at interviews with the actors from Star Wars, even back then, today, as they revisit and, over the years have talked about the history of making the movie, it's all very like, we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know what this mess was. It was very confusing even to them. And I think they all just agreed it was another B movie. Like, I don't think anyone but a few of the people who like were backing the movie and could kind of see, George's overall vision, like what this was actually going to be. And I think a lot of the actors were just like, yeah, this is just a goofy, silly movie. And next thing you know, they're household names. And I'm not trying to take anything away from it. Like I said, I'm ragging on it a little bit, but I love the franchise. I absolutely adore it. I think it's one of the best movie franchises. It speaks on so many different levels and tells so many different great stories, borrows from so many different iconic kind of like tropes and storytelling pieces from, other books and just all kinds of things like that. So I think there's a lot to it, but again, like looking at the making of it and where it started, I think it started just kind of like, what is this thing that we're even doing here? So I think that explains a lot of like the kind of silliness. It's like Darth Vader later in movies, his darkness and it's all very subtle, that mystery behind like who is this guy and what is he all about, and the hand gestures are a bit more dramatic but in a very subtle way, where if you look at the first film, A New Hope, uh, like, the whole "you are a traitor, a liar." He's like pointing his finger, and it's almost like you could just be like, "You are a big gold meanie pants, and I don't like you very. You're gonna see." It's like it's so dramatic. I was looking also at some of the scenes where he's sensing Obi-Wan Kenobi on the ship, and he's looking around, and it's almost not like it's not a subtle like I sense something. It's more he's like looking around like he hears like a buzzing in his helmet, or like there's a fly around him or something. Like what is that thing fly? Or he smells pizza, coming from the kitchen or something. It's so overplayed that I don't know. It geeked me out watching this movie. And of course, I mean, I feel like, the direction is always like, faster, more intense, and all of these things. So, given how George Lucas directs films, I feel like that is pretty accurate. And, I mentioned too, like, as, he sold the franchise, people got so upset. But I'm always like, the best stories of Star Wars have always been, even in the original franchise, better told through somebody else's eyes because, he directed the trilogy of the prequels, and they were not very well received, at all. And then the original film, and they all share kind of this slapsticky, goofy, wonky, kind of like silly, you know, almost space soap opera, if you will, like those. If you and I don't mean to take anything away, but I feel like if you look at the original film and the prequel trilogy, there's a very like soap opera-y, teeny bopper kind of vibe to that. Like it's almost like a soap opera in space for college kids or something, or high school students. Um, and the other films in the original trilogy, and then some of the things like the shows that we've gotten, the Clone Wars animated series, and those things that have been told through the eyes of other directors and other storytellers, to me, always just seem to come out in a better um, in a better scope in general. Just like everything about it, the the comedy or the romance and all of these things seem more realistic and more subtle. And even like when you go and look at like what Lucas did with the special editions, it's all like what he's adding in there is great, and it's like, oh yeah, we can put in new ships and new things and new this and new that, but the overall result is just like, oh, look at these silly robots bonking each other on the head, and oh, this silly Jawa can't seem to stay on his little, horsey animal in space, and it's just like, what? This is the level that we're of like entertainment that we're getting, even years later, 20 years later, and so as we're like adding to this, it's like we're trying to add to it, and we're not getting anything more than just extra stormtroopers and vehicles and more layers of characters walking around, which it's so fun. Even in, I feel like some of the prequels, those characters walking around, it's always just like two people clearly digitally put in to a scene somewhere. There's some great moments even in the prequel where I'm like, how did this make it through? Like, if you look back in Watto's shop while they're working on engines, there's a character literally talking to somebody in front of him, like making an eye line, but he's like up on a ladder and there's nobody in front of him. And it's just very, like, there's people like walking below him and doing things under him, but he's clearly like looking straight forward and ahead at something, like almost like he's teaching a class. And there's like nobody in front of him. It's just like this, they just took somebody and just like threw him in here just to add layers. It almost reminds me of like the full motion video game things where it's just like it just there's something off and a little digital about how the characters stand out from the fore. It was painfully obvious. So it's all silly. It's all ridiculous. It's all a story about space and aliens and laser swords and all these things. So again, I couldn't help but want to take a moment and just like explain that, like, it's all goofy. Like if you go back and look at all of it, people are like, oh, the new trilogy compared to the old trilogy. Well, yeah, look at it. I mean, we're looking at like sophisticated movie making techniques blended with the old ways of in original filmmaking, um, to silly green rubber masks and special effects teams basically putting together giant ships with like cardboard and plastic model pieces and things. So like, I mean, how do you judge that value? Do you judge it in terms of money and production value, in terms of like um, quality? Like, I mean, as far as the effects and all of that, and the quality of the effects and the quality and the acting, is the acting still kind of silly and over the top and cheesy and a little bit ridiculous? Of course it is, but is it more believable? And is it more? Are you more invested? I feel often more invested in some of the story pieces in episodes like 7 and 8, and even 9 to a degree, than some of the things that I would say that I'm invested in from like episode 4. You know, um, and there's just again going back to episode 4. So many pieces that lead you to believe that like you know um, that story could have just been a one and done. Like there's the piece where it's like, well, Darth Vader spins off into space and there is the Emperor out there, and you're kind of like wondering, well, like what is that all about? But really, like if you watch the film, it really does work as like a one and done. You're kind of coming into the story after like the oppression and the oppressors have already been established, instead of them like in most films trying to take over and the good guys trying to prevent that. The bad guys have already taken over. Um, and so for the good guys to come out on top and to have that one success in that first film, you kind of feel like, oh, well, this is it. Like they blew up the Death Star. The Emperor doesn't have an army anymore. He's going to have to completely rebuild, and most likely he's just going to fade out because he's just old. But they're able to like build and kind of like expand, because of like George Lucas's like imagination and what he brought to the table. So I think that is where I kind of fall in love with the story. And then as we get deeper and deeper into the franchise, we do just get so much more from it. We get so many more layers and so many more characters and so much more story, that I think that's what really amazes me, and that's why I love it so much, and that's why I just eat it all up, because it could have been just a very simple, okay, this is it. We have Star Wars, but the fact that we've been able to go back, tell stories of what's happened before, have stories of what's happened after, stories that are woven to the fabric in between all of that, is just absolutely amazing. And I think, like you don't get that with other franchises. I think it's a very unique franchise in the fact that even like, you know, horror movies and things like that, from time to time, will do a prequel or something, yes. But it's always a story of like moving the story forward and just kind of like redoing the original, but like, adding new elements to that, and kind of like, you know, um, something maybe like Bad Boys or Jurassic Park or something where, yeah, you want that same feeling of the original, but like let's keep building on that, and like how do you keep replicating that? Where really Star Wars is more of like expanding this world and expanding this universe that was really just built on imagination and really built on the idea of like anything is possible, and it really is super unique. I mean, look at every Harry Potter. Everything kind of like tells a story moving it forward. You do have the Fantastic Beasts, but that's almost like a slow piece and a slow build to what Star Wars has already accomplished. And it blows my mind to where it's been, comic books and video games and all these different things, and it's still evolving and it's still telling me, we're in the middle now of Andor, and that, second season of all of that, and the stories are still coming out, they're still evolving, they're still being told. And I can't think of even the Marvel franchises and the DC. They seem to continue to build to a certain piece, and that is very like different to me than just you know to what the Star Wars um, franchise has been able to do to be able to just tell stories based in that linear. Okay, this happens and then this happens and then this happens. Every now and again, you get like a story, maybe like I'm trying to think, Black Widow kind of told like a little piece of what was happening before certain events in the Marvel movies, but you don't have these crazy. Well, I mean, Marvel's getting there with the shows, I guess, I suppose too, but nothing. There's nothing like Star Wars. I mean, there's just never has been. It was new when it first hit the big screen. It was a new idea, new concept then, and it's just completely um, dominated that idea and continue to hold on to that idea of um, being different and being a whole different franchise and being something that kind of stands outside of the normal movie making. And again, like, as different as George Lucas's movie making style is and storytelling style is, that is something that I think he set out to do intentionally. He wanted to tell stories and make movies that were different than anything else that had come out before. And I think he absolutely, succeeded in all of that. So regardless of whether I think it's, like I said, the Alkali or Boba Fett, or whether we're looking at like Rogue One or, the Mandalorian, it's all goofy. It's all garbage. It all belongs in a trash compactor down there with Chewbacca and Han Solo. But it's all amazing. It's all good. It's all candy. I eat it up. Num 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 num. Give it to me. I want more. I can't wait till we get more. But let's just stop. Let's just stop with the silly. This sucks. This is garbage. This needs to go. If you like Star Wars, you like Star Wars. If you don't, you don't. Don't sit there and tell me this piece is good, that piece isn't, this piece is okay. It doesn't compare to the original trilogy. It doesn't compare to this. The original movie's better. This is that. It's all Star Wars. It's all goofy. It's all silly. It's all good. Thank you so much, guys, for hanging out with me. We're probably going to wrap up the Star Wars conversation. So if you're tired of hearing of Star Wars, don't worry. This is probably going to be like the last little bit, unless, I don't know, me and some friends decide to jump into some Fortnite and do some review on some Star Wars and that. But until next time, may the Force be with you. Make sure you share, like, subscribe, all that jazz. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Until next time, don't spend that quarter anywhere else, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.